I swear to Christ, Mark, if you for even a second, if you get on here after us not being on here for so long, I swear to Christ, if you get on here after this long of a hiatus and you try to tell me that Baker Mayfield is going to be the savior for the Carolina Panthers, I might slap you in the throat through the screen. I don't know how I'm going to be able to do that, but I will find a way if that's the ludicrous type of statement that you're getting ready to hand to me.
He's not going to be the savior. I don't think that's what Baker Mayfield is. We've got a 4-year sample of what Baker Mayfield is. I just don't think we cannot say that Baker is bad. We just have to say that Baker's probably an average quarterback. He's not top 12, but he's also not like I don't know. He's a mid-tier 50th percentile starter, and I do think he's probably the best quarterback that DJ Moore has ever had. That's what I'm excited for. Like, I don't want to debate whether or not Baker Mayfield is good. I don't want to debate whether or not Baker Mayfield is good. I just want to talk about the fact he is the best passer DJ Moore has ever had. He might be the best quarterback Robbie Anderson's ever had. So, like, look, what are we doing here? Are we hammering DJ Moore in the 4th round now?
I wouldn't say that. No, not for me. And look, I think we can debate Baker. I think we can debate if Baker's good, because I don't think he's any good. There's really no evidence that tells us, oh, Baker is a good NFL quarterback. Even when healthy, he's serviceable. He's like backup level, but he is like on this. He's on this Teddy Bridgewater sort of spectrum to me now. Like this, he's not like a Ryan Tannehill sort of level. He's not even, to me, a Jameis Winston sort of level. It's like Jacoby Brissett, ironically, coming from Cleveland. He's not. I mean, I think I named earlier in our the fantasy lounge. I think I named 28 other quarterbacks in totality that I would rather have over Baker Mayfield, that I trust more than Baker Mayfield. Not just because I think they're better quarterbacks, but also because I can trust them mentally. Like, they have more of a mental, a franchise quarterback mentality. Like, I can trust them in the locker room. And that's important. And I think people just take into accountability the fact that, oh, this person has talent. They can throw the ball really well, or they have a strong arm. That's what matters. It's not all that matters. It's really not all that matters. And I think people really need to start taking into account more the mental aspect of it. And I've been saying this for almost 5 years. Baker Mayfield's never going to be a franchise quarterback because he doesn't have that franchise quarterback mentality. He doesn't have it between the ears. He was never going to be. He never had that Drew Brees, Russell Wilson sort of mentality. And it's really just as important to me as the physical aspects of it, and talent aspects of it. So, I mean, I think that we're talking about DJ Moore. Look, DJ Moore, I like DJ Moore. We all know that. You and I have debated DJ Moore for, and his value for 2-3 years now. And my thing coming into this year, into 2022, was the same as it was going into 2021 and going into 2022, is the fact that that he gets a lot of targets, and he catches a fair amount of balls, and he has some solid yardage marks in his career, but he doesn't get in the end zone, and he's never gonna be able to take that next step unless he gets in the end zone. And I get it, hasn't had a quarterback really, but Baker Mayfield doesn't really change that much to me. Like, does he really make that big of a difference? No.
I mean, that's hard to say for me. Like, you look at what Baker Mayfield has done in his career. And I'm not going to sit here and argue with you about whether or not Baker Mayfield's good. I don't think Baker is good. And quite frankly, what I think really doesn't matter. It's just here's what he's accomplished. Or hasn't accomplished, I should say. He's never thrown for over 4,000 yards. He's never thrown for at least 30 touchdown passes. He has never averaged more than 7.7 yards per attempt, which he did as a rookie. And then 7.2, 7.3, 7.2. Like, this is what Baker Mayfield is. He's average. Like, on the football field, he is average at best. I don't think there are 28 quarterbacks in the NFL I would take over him, but I could probably name 15 pretty easily. So, like, that's what Baker is. But DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson both have never had a quarterback that was better than terrible. They've always had just absolute garbage at quarterback between the ghost of Cam Newton, between Sam Darnold, between Kyle Allen. Like that's all these guys have had. And I truly believe that Baker Mayfield is the best that these guys have ever had by kind of a lot. And the proof is in the pudding with some of these advanced metrics. PerPlayerProfiler.com, Baker Mayfield had 29 money throws last year. Sam Darnold had half that. A little more than half that. Sam Darnold had 17. Like, he only threw 9 touchdowns to Baker's 17. Obviously, those are not good seasons, but Baker was throwing touchdowns at nearly twice the rate Sam Darnold was last year. Even if it's a low rate, it's still twice as much of what Sam Darnold was doing. So,
well, Baker Mayfield is a perennial Pro Bowler compared to Sam Darnold. But like, we're talking, somebody had
that's
just,
all
I think
need.
some, I think
all I need to hear.
I think somebody just said, but you put it, he's average. And to me, top 15, if you're a top 15 quarterback, you're not average. Baker Mayfield is not a top 15 quarterback. Somebody had just said that. Look, let's go down the line here real quick. Burrow. I mean, let's just the absolute undebatable names here that are better than Baker Mayfield.
No, skip the undebatable names. We all know Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow. We all know those guys. But like you said, you're taking Ryan Tannehill over Baker Mayfield. I don't think that's a bad take. I would probably agree with you. I'm taking Ryan Tannehill. But between him and Jameis Winston, I think I'm taking Baker Mayfield, but it is pretty close.
Well, the fact is some people are saying top 15. Look, Burrow, Herbert, Brady, Allen, Mahomes, Stafford, Rodgers, Prescott, Cousins, Murray, Hurts, Derek Carr, Carson Wentz, Ryan Tannehill, Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, Jimmy Garoppolo whenever he starts somewhere else, Matt Ryan, Mac Jones, Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa, Jameis Winston, Trey Lance, Baby Baker, and or a better version of Baker Mayfield, and Gardner Minshew, Mitch Trubisky, Marcus Mariota. I mean, I understand if
you're taking Trubisky over Baker Mayfield.
100%, 100%. Mitch Trubisky took the Bears to the playoffs, coached under Matt Nagy. I mean, I don't know.
No, Mitchell Trubisky did not take anybody anywhere. The Bears had a generational defense in 2018, and it became apparent how bad Mitchell Trubisky was in that playoff game against the Eagles, dude.
Hey,
Trubisky's terrible. Like, Baker is better than Trubisky. And
the point is, you can debate that all day long, but you can debate Mariota and Trubisky and Minshew and maybe even Brissett. But everybody else I named, there is no debate there. They're all better than Baker Mayfield. So, like... And like you could debate Zach Wilson right now, and Davis Mills, and Teddy Bridgewater, and Justin Fields, and Zach Wilson and Daniel Jones. But the other guys I named, he's not a top 15 quarterback. I mean, it's unbelievable. He's an average quarterback. But getting back to the fantasy part of it, if I'm staring at DJ Moore in the 4th round, okay. And let's pull up these wide receiver ADPs. If I'm staring at DJ Moore in the 4th round, and you're talking about guys, obviously Chris Godwin's going there, but that's just because he's dealing with an injury here. Michael Thomas is going in that range. Amari Cooper is going in that range. Adam Thielen is going in that range. I think that's a really good debate, Adam Thielen or DJ Moore.
Okay.
Brandon Cooks, Mike Williams, Devontae Smith, Hunter Renfrow, Elijah Moore, Darnell Mooney, who you and I were just talking about offline, Allen Robinson, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, and Jerry Jeudy. I'll take both of those guys over DJ Moore with Russell Wilson at quarterback. So if I'm sitting in the 4th round and DJ Moore is there, and obviously a lot of these other names are there, even Gabriel Davis, and a lot of these other names are there, right? Do I look at this and say, well, doggone it, Mark, DJ Moore's got Baker Mayfield now, so I mean, I got it. This is a smash draft in the 4th round. No, I don't think it changes much. I mean, what is Baker Mayfield going to do if and it's debatable that he'll even be better than Sam Darnold. You can literally make that debate. So that doesn't give me the confidence enough to say, you know what, in the 4th round, I got to get DJ Moore in the 4th. He's a smash draft because Baker Mayfield's the quarterback. What does Baker do? Maybe increase his yards per game by 10 yards, 10, 20 yards. Maybe he has a touchdown or 2 more and finally gets over 4 touchdowns for the first time in his career. I mean, this is 3 straight years he's going on 4 touchdowns. I can't trust Baker Mayfield enough. What has he shown to where we can say, man, this is a really good thing for DJ Moore? You know what I mean? And do we not expect Terrace Marshall to take a step forward? You and I are salivating or salivated for Terrace Marshall. I still think he's great. So if he gets more involved, that hurts DJ Moore as well. So I think DJ Moore's right where he's pretty much always been. I don't think it changes much for me.
I guess the reason it changes much for me is three straight seasons over 1,100 yards. He adds rushing equity, so he's gone over 1,200 total yards in 3 straight seasons. He's got 2 seasons of at least 80 receptions. He's a target commander. He's got at least 118 targets in each of the last 3 seasons. He commanded 162 last year. We know this guy is going to get targets. The only problem is he's never had a worthwhile quarterback. He's basically the 24, 25-year-old version of Allen Robinson. And Baker is not going to be the Matthew Stafford for Allen Robinson.
No.
He's not going to be that for DJ Moore, but he could probably get close enough to where I think DJ Moore could have his best season as a pro. Listen, if we're talking about ranges of outcomes, and I'm always going to get onto this damn show and talk about ranges of outcomes, DJ Moore has had 3 straight seasons of 50th percentile outcomes. Not 35th, not 75th, just 50th percentile outcomes. What happens when DJ Moore finally has that 75th, 85th, 90th percentile outcome? He is going to be the dynasty wide receiver 1, and I want to be ahead of that. And that's why I'm going to take DJ Moore because of the upside. He still has upside. We have not seen his ceiling yet. I still think I'm taking him over Jalen Waddle. I'll take him over Deontay Johnson. I'll probably split 50-50 between DK Metcalf and DJ Moore. I'll take him over Terry McLaurin. I'll take him over Amari Cooper. I will not take him over Mike Williams.
Oh my God.
I will take him over Chris Godwin, and I will take him over Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Okay, you can take him over Chris Godwin until Chris Godwin gets back. You are not taking him over Chris Godwin when Chris Godwin is healthy. And Terry McLaurin, I can't even.
It doesn't matter. You
want to talk about guys that are producing with bad quarterbacks. You just hit the nail on the head with Terry McLaurin. Now you bring in a quarterback that's better than Baker Mayfield and Carson Wentz. Look, you can debate all day long about Carson Wentz being better than Baker Mayfield. Maybe it's by a ton, maybe it's not. I don't care. He's better than Baker Mayfield. So I can't.
They're the same player.
I cannot.
What's the difference between Carson Wentz and Baker Mayfield? They're the same player.
Well, I won't. No, I'm not gonna go that far. I'm not gonna go that far. But I can't agree with Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper, and look, we shouldn't even I don't even want to talk about Deshaun Watson. You should forget about Deshaun Watson as if he doesn't even exist, because he's probably going to get suspended for a year, and even if he doesn't, it's going to be enough to where he's really worthless to you in redraft leagues. So, in the dynasty, I'm just selling altogether. Just why even waste your time? I don't care what the upside is. Just waste your time. Cut your losses. Don't waste your time, and let somebody else deal with that headache. The headache's just not worth it to me, because this isn't going away anytime soon, in my opinion. So even with and Jacoby Brissett is every bit. I would rather have him. If I'm going to take an average quarterback, I'll take the average quarterback that doesn't give the locker room headaches, that isn't a distraction, that isn't constantly making noise on social media. Baker Mayfield's like the Kevin Durant of quarterbacks without that level of talent. That's exactly what he is. So, I want my quarterback, the leader of my football team at that time, whether they're an elite talent or an average talent, I want that guy to be ready and in the game mentally. Baker Mayfield is not that guy to me, so that's why I would rather have, in real life, Jacoby Brissett. And look, I think with Jacoby Brissett, if it does end up being Jacoby Brissett, which I think we can all expect it to be, I think with Jacoby Brissett, Amari Cooper, no Jarvis Landry anymore. I love DPJ. I love the ceiling and the chance there. David Bell, I think, is going to make a lot of noise as well. The rookie out of Purdue. Look, I think that these guys are have a lot of talent here, but Amari Cooper is the clear target hog, clear wide receiver 1 there. So to me,
is DJ Moore not that in Carolina?
He is. Yes, he absolutely is. However, I don't believe that we have seen what Amari Cooper has reached a different level. Amari Cooper's reached a different level than DJ Moore. He's just a better football player.
I would agree with you that Amari Cooper has reached a higher level in his career than DJ Moore. I guess I think what you're trying to say is that Baker Mayfield is not the quarterback that can untap or unlock DJ Moore's ceiling. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and here's the thing.
I think that's fine.
I like Matt Corral, and I think that's the puzzling thing to me. Why are you're gonna draft a quarterback? You already have an average quarterback as your starter right now. Now you're gonna trade a draft pick for another average quarterback with attitude issues and maturity issues. That much is damn clear. And why? Baker Mayfield's not going to get you to the playoffs. Matt Rule's not saving his job. Baker Mayfield's not saving Matt Rule's job. Matt Rule's going to be fired after this year, more than likely. And so why not just cut your losses and give the ball to Darnold until he falters, because that's inevitable, and then allow the rookie in Matt Corral, who has more upside, more ceiling, is more athletic, more mobility, stronger arm, just as better accuracy. Like, why would you just to me a better prospect than Baker Mayfield? Give him the ball and let him see where he can take DJ Moore, because I think we both agree that the possibility that Matt Corral gives DJ Moore a higher ceiling is greater than the possibility that Baker gives him the higher ceiling.
I don't think that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. I mean, I've been taking Matt Corral in Superflex rookie drafts all offseason long. I keep taking him at the end of the second round just because he's an upside pick. You know, if at the end of the day, I used a second round pick on him, a second round rookie pick. So if he doesn't get there, it's like, all right, I'm fine. I think Matt Corral has a ton of upside as a pro and in fantasy football, but we know what Baker is. We've seen it. He's put it on the football field, and he can unlock some wide receiver ceilings, in my opinion. Just maybe not what Cooper Kupp just did. Can Baker Mayfield be good enough so that his wide receiver one can do something like what Cooper Kupp just did? Probably not. Can he get to maybe where Stephon Diggs was 2 years ago with Josh Allen? I think he could. And I'm not saying that Josh Allen or Baker Mayfield can be as good as Josh Allen. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying I think DJ Moore is good enough that an average quarterback like Baker Mayfield can get him to that 75th percentile or higher outcome. What about Christian McCaffrey? Do you think this is good or bad for Christian McCaffrey?
I don't think it really matters. Christian McCaffrey's going to Christian McCaffrey. I mean, no matter what, like it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. I honestly really don't think it affects anybody. Like, not a single soul on that offense. I don't think it affects really anybody and changes the outlook, you know, for any player on that team. I'm not adjusting Terrace Marshall. I'm not adjusting Robbie Anderson. Robbie Anderson doesn't even want to play with him. I'm not adjusting DJ Moore. I'm not adjusting Christian McCaffrey. I just don't think it really affects anybody. So I mean, yeah. I mean, I just don't see how Baker can elevate the offense that much more than where it already is, or even that much more than what Matt Corral could do.
That I won't argue with you, because I think Matt Corral has a ton of upside. I personally think he was the best quarterback in this class, but he went in the third round and Kenny Pickett went in the first. So what the hell do I know? Yeah,
well, you know, we've bitched about NFL GMs making dumb decisions like taking running backs in the first round aplenty. And speaking of running backs, there's a lot of movement in the backfield, as there is every single year. But there's a lot of ambiguous backfields out there this year. Really, even more so, I think, than normal. And again, this is another reason why running backs don't matter in real life. Like, you don't pay running. They matter in fantasy. They don't matter in real life. Like, you don't pay running backs big money for this exact reason, because they're so easily replenished. Like, they're so easily replaceable. And it is the most easily replaced position on the entire football field. And so, and that has just, there's years of evidence for that, and there's still people that sit here and try to disagree with that. But it's like the science of running backs.
there were still running backs taken in the first round of the NFL draft as recently as last year. There were
I
two
know.
running backs taken in the first round of the NFL draft.
I know. How ridiculous is that? It's unbelievable to me.
I don't know. I mean, I still think Najee Harris and Travis Etienne are two of the worst draft picks I've seen in a long time. But that doesn't mean I don't love Travis Etienne for fantasy and Najee Harris as well. But
exactly.
Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we've been. It's like it's like I was just thrown in a time warp 3 years back in time, and we were having the same conversation we were having exactly 3 years ago today. I don't know. I don't think we need to hammer this anymore. But like, I like what you said about ambiguous backfields because of the NFL draft, there were some backfields now that weren't really ambiguous going into the offseason, and they've kind of been made ambiguous. Like, what's going on in the Patriots backfield right now? Like, can you make any sense of that?
Well, I mean, I think, Damian Harris is still obviously the guy. I mean, this has been a question for like a decade or more with the Patriots backfield. I mean, to me, I don't think James White's roster spot is in jeopardy apparently because they think up there that Pierre Strong can take over and be that guy. J.J. Taylor obviously has that talent as well. So, and they obviously drafted Kevin Harris in addition to that. So, Damian Harris is still the guy. Like, he's the one. If you're going to own any of them, Damian Harris is the one to own. Ramondre Stevenson, who I talked about a lot last year and who I owned and I loved, I mean, he's fantastic as well. So, those are two guys that, if Damian Harris gets hurt, Ramondre Stevenson is going to be on that RB1 borderline, I believe. So, and Damian Harris is already there. So, I think it's. I don't think Pierre Strong changes much. I liked Pierre Strong okay as a prospect coming out, but I don't think he really changes that much unless there's an injury ahead of him. Because I just think that Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson fit that offense a lot better than a guy like Pierre Strong does. So, for the most part, I'm still looking at it the same way I have the last 5-6 years. Whoever the starter in New England is, I don't want that guy as my RB1 or my RB2, and I'm trying not to have him as my RB3 because you know me in redraft leagues. I'm going running back, and it worked very well last year. And I'm going to do it again this year, just as I always do. And so it's very unlikely that I will have, when it comes time for Damian Harris as one of the best players available on the clock, I will probably be going after my receivers at that point. So, I'm not going to have a huge, share of, Damian Williams. That may change for Ramondre Stevenson because if I can get Ramondre Stevenson as my RB5 or 6, I'm thrilled with that because he's going to get touches every single week. He's going to be involved. He's going to, vulture a lot of touchdowns from Damian Harris, I believe. So, and I think as they went along last year, we saw that the coaching staff started trusting Ramondre a little bit more. So, it's not a backfield that I'm heavily targeting, but I'll have a lot more shares of Ramondre Stevenson just because he's so much cheaper than I will Damian Harris.
I think we can move on from the Patriots backfield because I feel the exact same way. I'm going to have next to no Damian Harris just based on his opportunity cost, and I'm probably going to be overweight on Ramondre Stevenson because I think if this offense produces any sort of RB1 or high-end RB2, it's going to be the guy who can not only score touchdowns at the goal line, but also catch passes. Ramondre Stevenson saw 18 targets last year. That's like the exact amount of targets Damian Harris has seen in his 3-year career. So there is a universe out there where Ramondre Stevenson scores like 16 touchdowns and commands 50 targets and is a borderline league winner. And that's the kind of upside I want to be exposed to. It is too bad that Pierre Strong did fall into this offense, though, because I think he's a baller. He's a freaking baller. He's over 200 pounds. He was pretty dominant in college. He's super explosive, 86th percentile burst score, 95th percentile speed score. This is the type of running back I tend to target, and he just went to a really bad spot.
Yeah, like he wasn't. I like him okay. He wasn't one of my favorite running backs in this class. I think I had him ranked 11th overall in this class. So I mean, but again, look, running backs always. Yeah, running back's always pretty deep, but I don't like him over guys like Brian Robinson and Tyler Algier and Rashad White and Jerome Ford and even Ty Chandler. And I'm not a big fan of Zamir White at all. I will have 0 shares of him. I don't want any part of a less than stellar running back with 2 bad knees. So I'll be staying away from him. I think I would take in fantasy. I would probably take a shot on Pierre Strong over Zamir White if it came to that, but it's not going to come to that because I even so far, like through 7 dynasties, I don't even have a single share of either one of these guys. So they're pretty irrelevant to me for the most part.
You did mention Rashad White and Brian Robinson. Those are 2 guys I heavily targeted in rookie drafts. I walked away with a ton of Brian Robinson. I didn't get as much Rashad White as I wanted, so I'm kind of balancing that out by getting a ton of Rashad White exposure in best ball. He's way too cheap right now. You can get him in the 13th round, and this is another backfield that I feel like him getting drafted in the 3rd round kind of made this Buccaneers backfield more ambiguous than it might look. Leonard Fournette goes in the 2nd round. I understand he was a bell cow last year. He was fat CMC again, but Rashad White is good. Like, he was an awesome prospect. He worked his ass off to get to where he's at. And he's got the all-purpose skill set and plenty of athleticism. Just like I said about Pierre Strong, Rashad White is like the exact type of running back archetype I tend to target. So I am going to be heavily exposed to him.
Yeah, and it's not just his archetype either. I like Rashad White. He's my sixth ranked running back in this class. But it's not just about that. It's about where he landed, because that does matter. He landed on a high octane offense that's going to score a lot of points. It's going to be in the red zone a lot. And look, he may not get a ton of touches in totality the first 4 or 5 weeks, but you can damn sure bet that if Leonard Fournette has another ankle injury and tweaks his ankle for a couple weeks, and Rashad White has to come in, that is, he's going to be in redraft leagues. He's going to be one of the probably the hottest pickup of the week if that ever happens. And look, best case scenario, he comes out and he's splitting carries week 1 with Leonard Fournette. I don't know that I think that's going to happen. I don't believe it will. But Rashad White needs to be drafted and he needs to be rostered. And to me, he's a surefire, easy trigger pull in the 2nd round when it comes to running back. Now, I'm not going to take him over Brian Robinson. It's between like Rashad White and Tyler Algier, I think, in that 2nd round. That to me is a flip a coin, do whatever you got to do. That's a toss up to me. I think I like both of those guys about the same. Those are my RB. Robinson was my RB4 post draft. So Robinson 4, Tyler 5, and then Rashad at 6. So they're all right there for me. But you mentioned Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson was my number 3 ranked running back pre-draft. So my number 3 running back prospect in this class. I think Brian Robinson is really, really good. And I see a lot of like Chris Carson in him. I don't think he's never going to be like, a guy that's going to, blow us away or anything like that. And I don't think he'll ever be, this top 10, top 5 fantasy running back. He could like fall into the top 10 if there's like an injury or something to Antonio Gibson, but make no mistake about it. It is time to sound the alarms on Antonio Gibson this year. At least as of right now. Think about this for a second. Before the draft, everything started falling into place for like elite Antonio Gibson God mode, right? Like you had J.D. McKissic going to the Bills, and then all of a sudden he rescinds he withdraws from that and ends up going back to Washington. So now Antonio Gibson's pass catching possibilities have just shot down, right? And then they draft Brian Robinson, who is inevitable on the goal line. Money in the bank on the goal line in the red zone. So this is like Antonio Gibson's being attacked at all angles here. This is not good news for Antonio Gibson at all. And I was a huge Antonio Gibson proponent last year. But this is bad.
No, I agree with you. Like, I still draft
Your dog
Antonio
agrees.
Gibson.
Your dog agrees.
It's actually not my dog. We're dog sitting. His name's Archie, and he just wants to talk football. He doesn't like our dryer, and our dryer is going right now. Where was I? Antonio Gibson, I still draft him because I think he's gotten really cheap. And again, we're going to talk about archetypes. He's that type of archetype that I will tend to go after. He's still very explosive. He's got the pass catching prowess. Can he still be a bell cow? He probably needs injuries for that to happen at this point. but it's almost like that gets kind of baked into where his cost is now. He goes in the 6th or even 7th round on underdog. So I can kind of justify that type of risk if the upside is what it is. He still kind of needs to run hot on touchdowns, which is going to be hard to do with Brian Robinson. But getting back to Brian Robinson, I take him too. If I don't get Antonio Gibson in a draft, I am more than comfortable taking Brian Robinson and getting exposure to these different potential outcomes where either there's a world out there where Antonio Gibson just becomes a gadget player. Like,
there is.
The Commanders could look at him and just be like, all right, you're talented, but you're not our starting running back anymore. You're just going to be you're our gadget player. And Brian Robinson he's literally live to take their first carry in 2022. He could be the starting early down back, and then J.D. McKissic comes in on passing downs. But Brian Robinson has a little bit of a pass catching profile too. So
he does.
Every down back or 3 down back in Brian Robinson's range of outcomes? I think it could be.
It could, absolutely. And if Antonio Gibson gets hurt, Brian Robinson to the moon. And here's the thing. You mentioned like how bad it could possibly get for Antonio Gibson. How good could it possibly get? I think the ceiling here, like best case scenario for Antonio Gibson, as it stands today, season starts today, best case scenario is you're just as confused with this backfield as you are the Patriots backfield that we just got. Like, he's going to be just as much of a headache for Antonio Gibson as Ramondre Stevenson is for Damian Harris. Just as big, if not bigger of a headache, because he's going to be vulturing so many more touchdowns, I feel. So, and that, again, we're talking about Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson. We're not even talking about J.D. McKissic. So, like, McKissic has obviously proved to be an excellent pass catcher and reliable at that. So, he ain't going away either. So, this is a backfield, really, that, you know, while last year it looked really good and Antonio Gibson had a great ceiling, and you were probably going into, you know, back in March before free agency began, or when free agency first started and JD's gone, you're like, man, let's draft today. I'm taking Antonio Gibson in the 2nd round. It would have been a good decision. And then the very next month, now you got, now the backfield has J.D. McKissic returning and Brian Robinson in the fold. And Brian Robinson is not, you know, some 7th round, barely making the roster type of running back. He's going to make the roster easily, and he doesn't fumble the ball. He is a very reliable running back. And like you mentioned, I mentioned Chris Carson. He's got a better pass catching profile than even Chris Carson does. So Brian Robinson is a good all-around football player. Is he ever going to be Saquon Barkley? No, he's never going to be a top 5 running back. Could he fall into the top 10 if injuries occur in that backfield? Absolutely. So he's one of my favorite rookie running backs today. I have so many shares of Brian Robinson in Dynasty. And then Tyler Algier, I've mentioned him a couple times. I think out of Brian and Rashad and Tyler, I think if you're going in the 2nd round, you're like, man, I need a running back that's going to get the most touches in year 1, it's Tyler Algier. Because I think in week 1, Tyler Algier could end up being the starting running back in Atlanta. And a lot of people are really excited about him. Me being local, they are very, very excited about him. And you turn on the tape and you can see why. Like, he's a big, strong, fast running back for his size, and he profiles really well. So I think that Tyler Algier could be one of those guys that, you know, you get in the mid to late 2nd round in your rookie draft, and he ends up being, you know, one of the best running backs out of this class in 2-3 years.
Whenever I think rookies on the Falcons, though, I just can't stop drafting Drake London in redraft leagues.
Oh,
by redraft leagues, I mean
say it again.
I mean best ball, because I really don't play a ton of redraft anymore. But I mean, Drake London's the best wide receiver in this class, right? Like, I once it got right down to it, I didn't think it was all that close. It was either him, Treylon Burks, or Chris Olave for me. And now I think it's a pretty clear, like, 1, 2, 3. London, Burks, Olave.
Here's the thing.
Whoever you want is 3.
Yeah, see, pre-draft, these guys were the top 6 were just extremely close. And it was Treylon, Olave, Jamison Williams, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, and who I've been talking about for, it seems like 4 years now, and Drake London. Those 6. You put them in any order you want, I'm fine with that, right? As far as prospects are concerned. And then it's post-draft, and you're like, okay, where do these guys go? What's the opportunity look like? And to me, Drake London should be the first wide receiver off the board. We're talking fantasy, you're talking situation, you're talking opportunity. What do we always say? With running backs, volume is king. With wide receivers, targets are king. So he's going to get targeted plenty because the only receiver really worth the damn playing for the Falcons is Kyle Pitts, right? And so he is going to take I think they're both going to kind of help each other out, but he is going to take a lot of that coverage that would typically go to a first round wide receiver off of Drake London. So Drake London's going to be playing a lot of man coverage in his rookie year. I think that's going to help him out even more, and it's going to be less frustrating for fantasy owners, regardless of who the quarterback is, whether it's Mariota or Ritter. But yeah, I agree. Drake London's, to be for fantasy, I think is the first wide receiver off the board. And I've got Olave and Jameson Williams and Treylon Burks, and then actually Wan'Dale Robinson at 5 there. And we can talk, Wan'Dale as well, but those are the guys kind of how I have them in order post-draft. But, yeah, Drake London, I am, in redraft leagues, do I want Drake London as my wide receiver 1 or 2? No. But look, if I've gone 3 straight running backs and then I go quarterback and then, I take 2 quarterbacks or something and Drake London's like my second or third wide receiver, I'm really good with that. I have no issues there. So I think it's just all about where you draft him.
Right. I usually put myself in a position to where if I'm taking Drake London in the 7th round, he's like my wide receiver 5. And I'm getting all of the upside in the world as wide receiver 5. I don't need him to contribute in weeks 1 through 8. I need him to contribute the final 10 weeks of the season. That's when he's going to settle into his role with the Falcons, blah, blah, blah. And that's when he's going to have his breakout. He's going to be a second half of the season riser. I would imagine a lot of these rookie wide receivers that end up making an impact, that's how it'll go. Like, if you look at the Chiefs situation, would it be all that surprising if, like, weeks 1 through 8, MVS was the clear-cut wide receiver 2, and we were all just looking at their ADPs like, Jesus Christ, how are we taking Sky Moore over this guy? And then the second half, Sky Moore settles into his role and is suddenly balling, and MVS is nowhere to be found. That's what these rookie wide receivers do. We see it all the time. They have that second half of year 1 breakout. We don't talk about the year 3 breakout anymore. It's all like if you don't contribute in year 1 and then break out in year 2, I'm pretty much off of you. Like, I'm not touching Jalen Reagor anymore. Jalen Rager's dead to me. I'm barely sniffing Laviska Shenault in the 18th round, but he's about dead too. And like, he's been a contributor. I think he's got 60 receptions in each of his first 2 seasons, but he just hasn't broken out yet. So
yeah, like, and we've kind of gone. You're right from that third year. Like, you're right. We've gone away from that. And why have we gotten away from that? It's because the NFL game has changed from what it was before. Receivers had more time before to really kind of get it together. They don't have that anymore, right? Like, and same thing with running backs, because the NFL game so closely mimics the college game now. And so if you're an impact receiver, boom, you're coming in and you're impacting. You're typically impacting right away for the most part. So that's why, to me, we're seeing these receiver classes that are so much more deep year in and year out, because there's so much more talent coming in, because so many of them can contribute and transition a lot easier than they could in 2002, right? Because it was just a different game in 2002, right? So the fact that the NFL game mimics the college game so much more now, it's easier for receivers to translate, and that's why you have seen me in the fantasy lounge and on shows beginning to tell people wide receiver is turning into running backs. You don't have to pay these huge ass contracts to these wide receivers, just like you don't with running backs. Allocate that money on more important positions like O-line and quarterback and pass rush and corner. As well. And so we're seeing receivers transition so much quicker now and impact the game a lot quicker. And so it's really becoming wide receivers don't matter either, in a way, right? In real life, because you can just find them and they recycle so much easier. But going back to Drake London, he is wide receiver 49 right now, coming off the board, the first rookie receiver coming off that board in redraft. Treylon Burks follows closely behind. He's next. And then a couple spots later, you have Chris Olave. So, and I think actually, I've never been a big Jameis Winston fan in real life, but Jameis Winston, we can all agree, in fantasy, he's pretty much money, right? And he is going to continue to be money, especially now with what's going to be a healthy Michael Thomas, and then you have a perfect complement receiver to complement Michael Thomas in Chris Olave, who I love. I mean, I was in love with Chris Olave as a prospect. So just the smoothest, most NFL ready receiver I think in the class is Olave. So the Saints are going to be fun to watch, and that's another reason why I said Baker's not taking the Panthers in this division to the playoffs, because they're not getting ahead of Tampa and they're not getting ahead of the Saints. And I think Olave is a big reason for that.
You're not the first person I've heard say that about Chris Olave. Like every time he gets brought up on a podcast I'm listening to, I keep hearing about how he's literally the smoothest route runner anybody's ever seen. How he's just precise and surgical.
It's incredible
with his route running.
Yep.
And I'm not a film guy. I love football. I watch football, but I'm not going to sit here and analyze a guy's route running because I don't know football on that level. I'm not a coach. I will probably never even be like a high school coach. Maybe I'll coach my kid's peewee team one day, but like I don't know nearly enough about route running to be able to watch a guy and go, oh yeah, he's a great route runner. I can tell you if a guy's like good or bad. I can't tell you, like when we get up to the top, like I can't tell you if Stephon Diggs is a better route runner than Keenan Allen. Like, and there are guys out there that can. It's just like I can't. I don't.
Well, I think Keenan's the best. Personally, I think Keenan's the best route runner. But it's like 1A and 1B with those two guys. Like they're both incredible. The great thing about Olave is people think he's going to have a high ADOT, and I think he probably will. But the beautiful thing about Olave is that he's not just a deep threat. He's not just John Ross, right? He is extremely fast. But if you just use him as a deep threat, you're not getting the most out of him. He is the best separator when it comes to route running in this entire class by a long shot. And that is really, so he gets open on, he gets open at all three levels of the field. So I think they're going to really kind of unlock Chris Olave, and it's going to do wonders for Jameis Winston. Do not be surprised if Jameis Winston is a top 10 quarterback this year in fantasy, because it is a very real possibility. Look, he's going to turn the football over. We know that. That's just Jameis. But he's also going to throw a lot of touchdowns, and that's going to be a very competitive football team as long as he's healthy.
Yeah, I think that would be fun. While we're here, if we're going to talk about the Saints, I need to know, are you drafting Alvin Kamara at cost?
No, I'm staying away from Alvin Kamara. I don't care anything about Alvin Kamara because and here's why. When Alvin Kamara is where he is going right now as RB9. So there's some people that are either forgetting about a probable suspension or they just don't care. He's going right there with DeAndre Swift, right there with Aaron Jones, with Joe Mixon, Javonte Williams. Need I say less? Like Javonte 100 times over Alvin Kamara to me. Saquon Barkley, I believe, is coming back. Nick Chubb, right in that area. Even Ezekiel Elliott is being extremely. I mean, he's a steal. Running back 15 off the board. David Montgomery is going ahead of Ezekiel Elliott. And I think that's just the Tony Pollard effect. That ain't scaring me. Give me all the Zeke all day long. If I can get him as my RB2 and possibly RB3, I'm stoked about that. So, no, I'm all out on Alvin Kamara. I won't have a single share because those are the guys that are around where Alvin Kamara is going.
Yeah, that's fair. You mentioned Zeke. I'm just loading up on Tony Pollard and hoping for the best, but I understand why you would take Zeke, so I think that's fine.
Yeah, we talked about Antonio Gibson. Antonio Gibson's going RB18. So he's going down there with Dobbins and Fournette and Mitchell and Connor, who I'm completely out on too. Jacobs, Akers, ETN is going. I'll take ETN over all of those guys I just named, every single one of them. ETN to me is like RB16, I think, right behind Elliott there. So ETN, I mean, you and I both love Travis Etienne and the prospect of that. Now he's in an ambiguous backfield as well because we don't know what's going to happen with James Robinson. Now you know me, my whole thing with running backs and Achilles injuries, and like I'm not messing with it for the most part, But is James Robinson going to be the first one to really do it? Probably not. But I think ETN to me is a guy who is coming in at extreme value, even still right now.